This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
ICC Prosecutor seeks probes into Nigeria war crimes by Boko Haram fighters. The UN marks the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement with a Climate Ambition Summit. And Tanzania announces major milestone in its fight against poaching. Hello and a very warm welcome to you wherever you're joining us. This is Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Mahai Mutua in Nairobi. Also coming up, in sports, Italian football stars and fans turn up for Paolo Rossi's emotional funeral in Vicenza. Welcome to Africa Live. We begin with the virtual Climate Ambition Summit, where UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged governments to declare a state of climate emergency until they become carbon neutral. He made the call at the event co-hosted by the United Nations, the UK and France. World leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, aim to set out new climate change commitments on the 5th anniversary of the Paris climate deal. Guterres called for a faster transition to a low-carbon future as countries recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping also addressed the Climate Ambition Summit, where he called for greater global cooperation in tackling climate change.
At the present moment, the international landscape is evolving more rapidly, and COVID-19 is triggering deep reflections on the relationship between man and nature. The future of global climate governance is drawing greater attention. In this context, I wish to make 3 proposals. First, we need to close ranks and make new advances in climate governance that features cooperation. In meeting the climate challenge, no one can be aloof, and unilateralism will get us nowhere. Only by upholding multilateralism, unity and cooperation can we deliver shared benefits. China welcomes all countries' support for the Paris Agreement and their greater contribution to tackling climate change. Second, we need to raise ambition and foster a new architecture of climate governance where every party does its part. Following the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, all countries need to maximize actions in light of their respective national circumstances and capabilities. At the same time, developed countries need to scale up support for developing countries in financing, technology, and capacity building. Third, we need to boost confidence and pursue a new approach to climate governance that highlights green recovery. Mountains and rivers green are mountains of silver and gold. It is important to encourage green, low-carbon ways of life and production, and seek development opportunities and impetus from green development. China has made important contributions to adopting the Paris Agreement and has made active efforts towards implementing it.
Well, 5 years since the signing of the Paris Agreement, several African countries have tried to play their part in tackling climate change by implementing small-scale interventions. However, a lot more still needs to be done. Earlier, we spoke to Chukwumereji Okerere, a professor of global environmental and climate governance, on this subject.
One of the most outstanding impacts of climate change is in the area of agriculture and food production. You see, because of Africa's location very close to the equator and being a tropical continent, Africa's temperature has been rising faster than the global mean temperature. And the consequence of this is that there has been a huge variation in rainfall pattern, and most parts of Africa have been experiencing shorter periods of rainfall and longer periods of dry season. The consequence of this has been a lot of drought and a lot of poor performance of our agricultural outputs. Another main area, but is the incidence of extreme weather events. And the third big area is through flooding. Africa is experiencing a lot of flooding, and that is resulting in massive displacement of people. In some cases, the entire states or communities have been sacked by flooding. And this also has resulted in serious socioeconomic consequences for many, many countries and communities across Africa. There are a range of different things that should be done. Number one, African countries need to fully understand the nature of impacts that are currently being experienced and the future projected impact. This means investing heavily in science, in climate modeling, climate prediction, to be able to understand the current and future goal levels. And quite frankly, also, Africa needs to intensify their advocacy to attract finance, technology, and capacity building resources from the developed countries to enable them to implement their plan.
Well, the COVID-19 lockdown in Uganda may have helped keep the sky clear, but the country's problems with air pollution will far outlast the pandemic. Environmentalists, however, are concerned that the easing of lockdown measures will lead to an increase in pollution. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
These devices are helping scientists monitor pollution in the capital, Kampala. They've been installed at strategic points in the capital, Kampala. The data collected will be used to develop more effective ways to fight air pollution.
We do have to worry about air quality in Uganda. We have so many activities that contribute to air pollution and worsen the quality of air in the country. We have so many old vehicles, too many two-stroke engine motorcycles. We do a lot of rubbish burning. We do use a lot of fossil fuels.
A recent study by the country's environmental watchdog showed a remarkable improvement in air quality during the lockdown. Before the lockdown, the air quality index fluctuated between 150 to 250, and during the lockdown, it was between 0 to 60. But with the easing of the lockdown, pollution levels are steadily rising. Most of these vehicles are imported as second-hand cars. Ugandan scientists say they are partly to blame for compromising air quality here. Environmentalists are now pushing for eco-friendly means of transport.
The use of sustainable means like electric vehicles, use of pool transport, use of healthy means like cycling, bicycling, walking, and also regular servicing of vehicles.
Uganda has already started manufacturing electric cars. Scientists believe this could be one of the solutions to curb respiratory problems in the country.
The lesser the number of cars which are old, the better for this place, because then the air is less contaminated. But also the industries that are coming up, I think they have to be monitored and investigated thoroughly if they can manage their wastes well, so that air pollution can decrease.
So far, there are no clear figures of how many people die from air pollution in Uganda. But health workers say it will take everyone's effort to have a city free from pollution. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
The International Criminal Court prosecutor has called for a formal inquiry into war crimes and crimes against humanity in Nigeria. This follows a decade-long investigation into violence in the northeast involving Boko Haram militants. Fatou Bensouda said in a statement that the vast majority of crimes were by what she termed as non-state actors, although Nigerian security forces also need to be probed. She also said after 10 years of investigations, the situation in Nigeria has met the required criteria for an inquiry. Meanwhile, Boko Haram was founded in 2002. At first, it was a non-violent religious movement that advocated for purification of Islam in northern Nigeria. However, following the arrest and killing of its founder, Mohammed Yusuf, in 2009, the new leader, Abu Bakr Shekau, radicalized and aligned it with Al-Qaeda. He would later begin a military campaign against the Nigerian government. Boko Haram is blamed for high-profile attacks on civilian and security installations, including the recent killing of at least 110 rice farmers in Borno State. It also claimed responsibility for the kidnap of over 200 Chibok schoolgirls in January 2016. The group's campaign has led to deaths of thousands of locals and security agents and the displacement of over 30,000 people in northern Nigeria. You're watching Africa Live here on CGTN. It's time for us to take a short break. Here's what's coming up when we return. US FDA issues emergency use authorization for Pfizer vaccine. And Tunisia opens hospital to treat COVID-19 patients.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Welcome back onto the United States now, where the Food and Drug Administration has authorized the emergency use of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine. President Donald Trump says the first vaccine could be administered on Saturday. The first round of nearly 3 million doses are expected to go to healthcare workers and elderly people in care facilities. The U.S. has also doubled its purchase of the vaccine developed by Moderna. The head of the FDA says he is ready to get the shot as soon as it's available. Well, since signing an agreement with Pfizer and BioNTech in July, Japan has been preparing a mass vaccination plan. It has also purchased 20 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, enough for 60 million people. The country is expected to receive a quarter of those doses by March. Japan also plans to buy 10,000 deep freezers to store the vaccines. The country has a population of 120 million people and has agreed to buy a total of 290 million doses of vaccines. Elsewhere, Tunisian President Kais Saied has inaugurated a new university hospital in the city of Sfax. The project has been financed by a grant from the People's Republic of China. The hospital will initially serve as a national treatment center for COVID-19 patients before then being used as a military hospital. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi has the details.
The Tunisian president was briefed about the services available at this new health facility. They include an intensive care unit, neurology department, and the emergency department. The activities of this China-funded hospital will initially start with a capacity of 10 ICU beds and 52 oxygen beds before the addition of another 20 ICU beds and 160 oxygen beds.
This health facility will be useful in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. before being used as a military hospital that will also be open to the civilian population. The military health department will run the hospital. I hope that such hospital facilities will spread to all governorates in the country. Good healthcare is an integral part of human rights.
The hospital has a capacity of 250 beds. It has a center for reception and registration, as well as outpatient consultation services. It also houses a resuscitation complex, which includes an operating wing composed of 5 wards, an anesthesia service, and an emergency services complex. Inside it, there's a medical and surgical complex with a capacity of 156 beds and a psychiatry department with a capacity of 80 beds.
This is an opportunity to thank the People's Republic of China and the ambassador to the People's Republic of China, who is present to deliver the hospital. Joint work between Tunisia and China will be implemented to carry out major achievements that meet the requirements of citizens and their right to human dignity.
The Chinese ambassador to Tunisia declared that the hospital is the biggest project and donation from the Chinese government to the North African state since the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Tunisia.
We are honored by the presence of His Excellency the Tunisian President, who thanked the Chinese government and the Chinese people for bringing a new fruit of cooperation between China and Tunisia in the health sector, especially during this pandemic. That's because the virus has no frontiers. No one is spared. Fighting against the coronavirus requires the reinforcement of international cooperation.
The Chinese ambassador also noted that this important donation shows the continued strong ties between Beijing and Tunis.
China has made this donation to the Tunisian government to support the authorities in fighting the virus. But we've also brought donations like protective equipment and healthcare equipment. This highlights the good and friendly relationship between China and Tunisia.
The new hospital built by the Chinese government covers more than 26,000 square meters. It also houses a medical imaging complex, MRI and CT units, as well as a modern laboratory and pharmacy complex. It also has an administrative and technical services department.
Health authorities say the China-funded hospital will facilitate the work of healthcare workers in southeast Tunisia and the whole region during the COVID-19 pandemic and after the end of the global health crisis. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Let's now turn to Tanzania. The government there has announced a major milestone in its fight against poaching. Astra Tal has more now on how the country says it's able to decrease poaching by 90%.
According to Tanzanian officials, poaching practices have decreased by 90%. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism says the achievement is due to a 5-year commitment to tackle the issue.
So from 2015, thanks to His Excellency Dr. John Pombe Joseph Magufuli, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, we have been able to bring the populations back from the 40,000 back in 2014 to now 60,000 wildlife populations. So this was a huge achievement.
Now authorities have set an ambitious goal when it comes to the fight against poaching.
We want to use education as the first tool of bringing down poaching. That means sensitizing the people of the good use of these resources. But number 2, we want to involve them. We're involving communities, especially those living in and around these protected areas. We involve them. So this is a philosophy that is known as community-based conservation. And the third element, we have a force, a conservation force, that is called Wildlife and Forest Conservation Service. So through those elements, we hope we'll be able to bring poaching down to 0 by 2022.
The government is also looking to establish community-based policies. the country plans to license and legalize the sale of bushmeat. This is aimed at locals who hunt for food, and the Wildlife Management Authority will be in charge of the licensing.
This is a strategy which has two phases. One is to allow the citizens of this country to benefit from the resources that they own. These are the resources that we are endowed with, and therefore it's fair and just. But the second one, we want to use this strategy of allowing people to farm and allowing people to open these bushmeat selling points, so that people that want to poach animals for food will be discouraged because they can get bushmeat legally.
Tanzania's wildlife is a major part of its tourism industry. The government hopes these policies will preserve their natural wonders. Astatal, CGTN.
Well, it's just about time for the sports news here on Africa Live. Here's what's coming up.